It is 6:03. Is that correct? Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm very excited. Glad to see you in the place. We had a very good meeting on Tuesday and a lot of things that we'd like to cover with you. And then today we also had a good meeting with several members of the community in the room. It was mostly community leaders who were there today, and we had a really good conversation. And I think the conversation is indicating that we are going in the right direction as far as the community is concerned, and that they also understand that this is going to be a journey, not a sprint, that we're going to have to put in some time and energy together, and that we have not just the external work, but I think I said this previously, but there's also some internal work that needs to take place for us to be successful in making changes in the community. So it was very encouraging having, that's a tough conversation though, but those are the crucial conversations that really let us know that we are making progress, that people are aware, that we're aware of how things really are, and not, you know how sometimes people come in and you listen to it all and then you realize they don't have any idea what it's really all about. Does anybody know what I mean? And if you notice that, so in our case, we want to be, and this is the words we use all the time, community driven, right? In the work that we do. We don't want to come in and tell the community. We want the community to actually tell us, and then we want to be facilitators and resources that they can use to really bring the kind of change that they want. And I probably have said this more than once, and the bad news or good news, depending on how you feel about that, is that I will probably say it over and over again, because I think that's how we really get it done. It's not, we say what people want to hear, or we change our message to, something different every week, but it's that we are very consistent in what we do and what we say. Good evening, Mr. Frazier. Welcome to the oops, he's not here yet. Good evening, Mr. Frazier. Welcome to this evening's visit. You were there on Tuesday, so I'm glad to see you. So
Good
you'll
evening,
know
everyone.
some of what I talk about. Thank you for coming and being with us.
Yes.
So I'm gonna get started. Thank you all very, very much. I'm probably gonna change up the format of this next month, and I'll give you some notice as to what that will look like. But for right now, I guess I want to ask a question. As we were meeting on Tuesday, one of the things that we started talking about was every person is important. Every person uh, has gifts. Each person's gift is different, and it is when we know what our gift is that we bring to the group, and then that we share that gift, that we actually make the most impact on the group, and kind of, I like to say, we exercise our superpower. So tonight I'm going to start with that question of, well, what is your gift? And I just like for you to think for a second, and then just tell me what you think your gift is that you bring to this group, and why. So it's really a small group tonight, and I'm actually very happy with that. Since Mr. Fraser, you had a chance to be a part of this before, I think if you don't mind, I'll try to let you kind of lead off. Jacob, welcome. We're just getting started, so you are here on time. So glad to see you.
Okay, so you want me to begin?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. what I think is my superpower is my ability to connect with people. I've been in the social services industry for 20 plus years, and had to have a way. I had to have the ability to connect with people.
That's good. That's good, Mr. Frazier. Thank you very much. And how do you think that helps the group?
It helps. It can help. Excuse me, I got a phone call real quick. How does it help the group? By being able to, for me to be able to share some of my experiences over the years. Hold for me for a second, please.
No, go ahead. Let me move to the next person.
Pastor Greg.
Miss Candace. Can you?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Well, I know that my gift is singing, but one of my superpowers is like a little like Mr. Frazier, connecting with people is very easy for me. I see people as individuals. So every person that I meet is interesting to me. And how that helps the group is I can connect people with the group because I know people.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, so how does that help the group? Being able to share some of the lived experiences I've had, can help people from, maximize, become more efficient, and maximize our strengths versus our weaknesses. Those sort of things.
Okay, that's really perfect. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Candace, could you wrap up? You were just wrapping up. Sorry. Oops.
I was pretty much done. It was just that I know my gift is song, and sharing that with people is very important. It wasn't given to me to keep it to myself. And my superpower is the ease with which I connect with people and love people. I see people as individuals, and it's all interesting to me, every little part of them. So, and then for the group, I can connect the group with people, and I'm not afraid to be connected. So I think it just helps.
Thank you, Candace. That was great. Karine.
Hey, folks. I echo what everyone else is saying, the ability to connect folks and the ability to use lived experiences to connect with folks. I think that's one of my strengths. A few years back had a supervisor that said that she saw my gift. She said, and I had never heard it put this way before, that she said, my gift is that I make every person that I'm speaking with feel special and important. And to me, that was just part of interacting with folks and giving them my attention and genuinely listening to their story. But I really took her words to heart and became more conscious of the fact that it's not just a conversation, that we have to really pay attention to who we're engaging with. And it's not just words being spoken in the direction of someone, but to make a meaningful, lasting communication. And I think that really plays into the work that we're doing in the rule of three, how it's building relationships.
Yeah. I was just getting ready to say, yeah, what you're talking about very much is that which allows us to have these ongoing relationships with people. Jacob, welcome. I hope that all is going well for you. How are you doing tonight?
Hello. I'm doing very good tonight. How's everyone? How are you doing?
Very good. Did you kind of get the question? So the question is, what's your gift? And how can you use your gift to help the group?
I would say that my gift is philosophy. The love of knowledge is the etymology of that. and science. Like, I feel like I do a good job of making connections between new ideas and the ability to discover ideas and to dig into literature such as philosophy or science, which there's a lot of, like, especially when it deals with things like health or like social things like anthropology. So I feel like that is one of my gifts that I like to share with people.
Perfect. And how do you think that helps us as a group, Jacob?
So like, it looks like a lot of this work has to do with like social research and that with knowledge such as anthropology and philosophy and health science. I think those are some building blocks that could help.
I would agree. I would
in the
agree. I
mission
think
of
that would
like
be really
improving the
valuable.
well-being and prosperity of the community.
Thank you. Thank you. Vladi, would you like to say anything?
Well, as we had a similar question, well, the same question answered on Tuesday, and my answer was, I guess I'm able to adapt quite easily as I've lived in different countries. I think I always have to count them on my hand. So it's like, this is the fifth country I lived in, and each of them are very different cultures. And that's what I find kind of motivating, try to connect people, like be interested in what they are, where they come from. And it's kind of like the curiosity makes me connect with the people. And it's also the adaptability is a pretty good skill, I would say, that you are able to adapt to different social situations. So I would kind of think that's a good skill to have.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Angelica, did you want to jump into this?
Hi. I think my skill is just in my head. I like things ordered. So I like to just help. I mean, the team knows it. I try and organize everything and, have everything have its place. So just, the behind the scenes stuff is what my strengths are.
Good. That's great. Well, listen, I think each one of you brings something that no other person can bring. Even when it sounds like it's the same thing, it's still unique because it's based on you and your experience. And what this all reminds me of, as we were talking on Tuesday, I was thinking about one of my favorite movies, The Lord of the Rings. And I was saying what I really liked about The Lord of the Rings was the idea that they formed what they call a fellowship. And the idea of the fellowship is, when they need to get something done, it's when we put together each one of our unique gifts and strengths, it also helps us to cover everyone else's weaknesses and the areas where they may not necessarily be so strong. And so as a group, one of the things I would like to see us understand is how do we begin to recognize where we each can contribute and how we each can make one another better. Because I think that's what happens. I think when Vladi brings her gifts and Candace brings her gifts and Karina brings her gifts, as we each bring our gifts and give them, and I really like what you said, Karina, a few minutes ago, you recognize the importance of what your gift is and how it impacts people and how it helps people. When we can do that, then what we really are doing is beginning to transform into a team. We're starting to transform into a group that can really make a change and that can really make a difference. And I think that's kind of the heart of where I want to go tonight, that how do we work together? What are some of the things that we need to do? But as we often set out in a fellowship, one of the things that we also need to think about is, well, how can I support you? What is it that you think that we as a team can do to help you to be better at what you want to get out of this? Because I think we all go on these quests, we join these journeys because we all believe that, in the end, it also is going to be better for us. It's going to make the world more the kind of world that we want. So the question that I like to kind of have us focus on now is the question of, how can we support you? What's an area that you would like to see this group help you, so that you will feel like this was a really successful experience? And I think this time, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and start with you, Karina, if that's okay.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute. I'm multitasking. Can you repeat that again? I lost while I was trying to unmute.
No problem. I was asking the question, as much as you will contribute to the group, one of the things that I think makes the fellowship work is that the group also helps you. And, where can we help you so that you feel like your engagement, you're a part of being a part of this group, is not just helping the group, but is also, what is it that we can do that would help you?
Oh, absolutely. I think that what I'm most looking forward to is, again, that human interaction, right? As part of what I bring to the table is being an elected official and being able to, as part of the social media engagement and saying, I'm here, I'm attending these events, this is community building. Every single interaction that I get with the person is collecting a part of their story that will help inform my leadership to be able to combine to my lived experiences and be able to share in spaces where I can hold that space for the people that aren't there, where I can elevate the voices of those that don't know where to share what needs to be said. So I know that everything's a two-way street. So for me, it's the ability to gain additional stories that I can share. And I think that will help strengthen me as a community advocate and a community leader.
Thank you, Karina. That's wonderful. Thank you very, very much. And I'm gonna go to Jacob.
I don't know. I would say I would like to learn more about the community, and I thought it was interesting how there was different parts of this group. Besides meeting people, there was also collecting data and dealing with different types of groups. And that's what I think is very interesting, is important, not just for this group, but for philosophy, to understand different perspectives, different generations. And that could help, I think, this group. And I mean, it would help me too, I would say.
That's perfect. Thank you. That is great, Jacob. And, as we were talking, I was thinking we need to talk about assignments. And as our youth program is starting to, kind of get going, we really would like for you to take those skills and gifts that you have and work with that group. But I also would like for you to connect with our data team, because I really think you could be kind of the liaison between what the youth coordinator and our community service coordinator are doing and what the data team is doing. So I think it's going to be a really good relationship for you, because I think it'll give you some exposure to, on boots on the ground research and working with people. And at the same time, I think it will help that team to have someone who is bringing that perspective and collecting some of that information, because I really think that that's where we're going to see a lot of growth. So you're right on, and I think we can help to accommodate what you're looking for. I'm going to go to Ms. Candace next.
Well, I really want to learn how to help my community, how to find the resources necessary, how to be a good steward over those resources, how to implement programs that are going to help our youth. My heart is with the young people and, you know, these generations that are coming up. They need guidance, they need love. And I want to be able to give that through them, through education, through music education, music therapy. And in order to do that, you need resources. And I know that I'm being steered and led in this direction intentionally. And I'm thankful for We Are One United. And basically that is what you're doing for me right now. So thank you.
Oh no, thank you.
Thank you.
This is
This is
really our privilege to be able to have you be a part of what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit more to what you just said, Candace, because I think both this lesson and then a little bit of what we talked about today, this morning, and what I experienced earlier today go right in line with what you're talking about. So I'll come back to that, but I think you are spot on, and we are privileged to have you as part of what we're trying to do. I'm going to go to the ladies first, and you, Mr. Frazier, last. So, Angelica, do you have a thought?
I do not have a thought.
Okay, that's okay.
But you guys bring value to me. You guys are my connection to the world. Yeah, you guys are my community, basically. That's what I'm saying.
Great. And that helps, right? I mean, you want that, right? You want that connection.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think sometimes it's good to be able to understand and acknowledge that, you know, I think we are better together. I think that we often say that, but really working with people energizes us. It helps us to have meaning in what we do, and knowing that we are helping people is one of the most satisfying, I think, experiences you can have. And I think sometimes we don't sit back and appreciate that. I think we don't absorb the fact that it's not just, you know, that I'm pouring in, but what I'm getting back is really multiplied satisfaction based on knowing that some of what I'm able to do to help others is really making a difference. So that's not trivial in any way. That's really the essence of, I think, what we all want, which is when we say, you know, this was a good day, it's by looking at, you know, what we did that brought us satisfaction that day. And I think sometimes it's really important to take time at the end of the day. And I really encourage all of us to do that and just, you know, kind of think about, you know, what was good about today, because there's a lot of benefit to what we do. So, Ms. Vladi?
I guess for me, the biggest value is being able to work with people who have a vision, you know, like they actually want to change the world for the better. And that is motivating in itself, because we are a pretty good team of like a lot of different experiences or like backgrounds or skills. And this way we are able to learn from each other. So this is like the great value, is to be actually learn and to be able to see the impact, or just to be able to work for the impact.
That's really good. That is very, very good. And Mr. Frazier.
If I understand the question is what did I want to get from the team or being part of the team?
Well, yeah. How can
Well,
what can we do to help you?
Yeah, the thing that I think will be most beneficial in helping me, that I want to get from the team, is I want to get from the team assistance with developing a better understanding of the process. Mm-hmm. Because this journey that we're embarking on is a very noble and worthy journey, and it can be challenging and frustrating, and it can be all of the above. but by having a better understanding of the process, and internalize that can begin to help me individually, and also what I'd like to get from the individual and collectively, and also what I'd like to get from the team is I lost my train of thought right there. Is to because through the company, MPG, I have certain goals and things that I want to accomplish, and I think the goals and objectives of We Are One United are very similar and are very compatible. So I want to have some solidarity with the team and be successful and goal oriented and focused on this mission.
Wow. Well, that is wonderful. You know, as I'm listening to you guys, I'm really just kind of beaming with pride and very excited, because this is exactly the direction we want to go in. I mean, first of all, this is what I would like to suggest. I think that all of the gifts and the resources that the community needs to really address and solve its problems are already in the community. I believe that what we have to do is, first and foremost, take time to build enough relationship with one another, enough trust with one another, with between us and the community, between members in the community themselves, so that we can start to not focus on what we don't want, but really focus on what are some of the things that we think are important for the community. What are some of the things that we think are important for one another? I think too often what we start out doing is we come into the community as if it doesn't have the power that it needs to affect its own healing and growth. And that often then puts the community in a deficit position. Now we're like, you need us to do this. And so we disempower the community by doing that. So our approach is and will continue to be that we are really here not to, help people, so to speak, where, you say, well, I'm going to help you, because that implies that you are broken. But what I think we're really here to do is to take people like you, Mr. Frazier, and you, Candace, and you, Karina, and say, how can we, first and foremost, now that we know more about each other and now that we know what each other can do, how can we now have a strategy, a plan that we can use, that the community can identify, these are the things that we want to achieve. These are the things that we think we want to see in our future. I think I was at the Coachella Valley Business and Economic Forecast this morning. And I had, that was today. And one of the things that, as I was listening to the talks, we had people come in and talk about the airport and how important it is and how it really is changing the face of Palm Springs, and how the people at the airport want to continue to expand it. So even though it says Palm Springs International Airport, it really doesn't have very many international flight. That's no problem. Don't worry. You'll catch up, Karina. Don't worry. And so, so they were talking about, we're going to start, we have people who are in London and we want to start having flights to different countries, and how that will help bring more people into Palm Springs and how that's important. And we had someone talk from LG Electric, and they were talking about this idea of let me see what he called it. Give me 1 second. You know, being a smart person, you write stuff down, right? Because you know you're not going to remember everything that people say. But I think the term that he used was, give me 1 second, I get my brain. He said, anything, anytime, anywhere, that everything would just be tied up to your electric. So it's, in my mind, what it sounded like is, like, it'll all be like Alexa. You could just, you know, you walk in your house, you want the light to come on, you just say, turn on the lights. You want to start dinner, you say, okay, cook the meal. You know, everything is going to be automated. And they have a program that they call ThinQ, ThinQ, ThinQ. And so, you know, they're bringing that, and they want that technology to unwind, and they want us to be known as kind of that automation, electronic automation capital of the world. And then there was another group there, and they were talking about small businesses and how they might grow, and some of the things that will happen. Hilda Kennedy was there talking about that. And from Greater Palm Springs, they were just pointing out, you know, how much of a destination Palm Springs is. What I didn't hear was anything that spoke to the needs of communities like Coyote Run and Desert Island Gateway. And that's because that's not their agenda. What we have to do as a community is develop our agenda. What is it that we think is important? What do we want to be, just like each one of them has decided we're going to be recognized as the best destination, we're going to be recognized as, you know, the best automation. We have to decide, what is this community want to be recognized as the best community? And so this is an important kind of step for us, that as we get to know each other, as we trust each other, that we start to look at, where do we want to go and where can we go together? I think what has held us back the most is that it's very hard for us to do that, because some people will say, well, I would like to do this. And other people say, I would like to do that. And other people say, I'd like to do that. And what we haven't figured out is, how can we all get in a place where we find a destination that we want, and that we all work together to reach that destination, even though it's not my personal destination. Does everybody hear what I'm saying? But in the process of going for that destination, what I have seen happen is that as I go on this journey to help us as a collective reach our destination, what happens is I wind up recognizing I'm checking off all the stuff that I wanted on my destination. Does everybody know what I'm saying? So the reason I am here is because working with this project, working with this community, is checking off the boxes that I have as John Epps, even though it's not, well, this is where John Epps wants to land. But in the process of helping one another, what we're going to find is that the things that we wanted, the desires that we have, can really and will really be kind of realized in ways we didn't even think were possible. And I think that's the kind of joy of this exercise, because it doesn't happen the way we think it should or could. And we have to just be able to get ourselves out of the way long enough. Does everybody hear what I'm saying? Get ourselves out of the way long enough so that it can actually, the magic can start to work. Too often what happens is, as soon as we start moving, somebody says, well, no, how's that going to benefit me? Where's mine? I want to get my thing out of this. And as soon as we start to have that kind of a mindset, now we slow down and eventually kind of, unfortunately, sabotage what we're trying to do. And so we lose momentum. You know, today, as the team was meeting, they were talking about, you know, some action in the community to start to address some of their concerns. And there were a lot of statements being made like, well, this person is about this, and that person says this, and this group wants that. And I said, first of all, you may be right, but you also may be wrong. The only way you're going to find out is you need to talk to them and you need to say, so is this your policy? What is your policy? What is it that you really are? What's your goal? What are you trying to do? And then once they tell you those things, once they tell you that our goal is, to make this a safer community or to ensure there are more jobs, then you have to go back and look at the data, look at what has happened over the years. And if it turns out that instead of making the community safer, they made it more dangerous, or if in terms of, helping people get jobs, they really haven't come through with what they suggested, then you have to go back to them and say, well, how do we move from this place where this is what you said, but this is what we see? I think somebody asked earlier, what's our process? I think our process starts there, that we start by saying, okay, what do you want? What do you think? Where do you think? And then going to the different people, sources, both inside and outside the community, and saying, okay, well, if that's what you say you want, how are you doing that? And then let's take a look at how you're actually performing. Are you actually making the community safer? Are you actually creating more jobs? Are you actually, helping the youth to grow? And if we see that the youth aren't growing, if we see that the people in the community don't feel safer, then we want to ask, how do we do something new, different, better together so that we can make it safer, so that we can make it better? And then we start out on that route, and we're going to find out one of two things. We're going to find out that either they are doing what they said they're going to do and it's working, or they said it, but they don't mean it, in which case, then we need to know, okay, stop expecting them to do what they aren't going to do. Does anybody hear me say this? Because I think too often what we do is we hear them say it, and so we think now they are going to do it. And this is the thing that was the breakthrough, I think, today, was that the group recognizes that really we can't let someone else say what's going to happen to us. We have to say what's going to happen to us. We have to be ready to stay in the game and achieve the goals that we want with or without others. Not because we don't want them, we do, but because it is foolishness if you see that what they say and what they do is not the same thing, to keep on living with that. Does that make any sense? If they say, well, I want to make this a safer community, but in fact, it's not becoming safer, and the things they are doing is not making it better, then guess what? We should stop saying, well, please do that, because we know they aren't planning on doing that. Now, once we know that, we have to say, how do we make it safer? So then we have to look at, well, how can we advocate better? So Karina, what you were saying earlier fits right into what I'm saying now, right? That, okay, who do we need to talk to if we feel like we need an ordinance to be changed? Or who do we need to talk to make licensing, change a policy? Where does that begin and how does that change? And one of the things we know in our communities is we don't always understand how that works well enough to go in to try to get it to change. So it's important to have somebody like you on this team. It's important to have your superpower here, because you can say, well, you can't just go to elected that way and just demand something. Here's how you can help get that done. This is the one thing I know. Every person in that room today that is realizing their dream and their destiny has figured out how to work that system. Does everybody know what I'm trying to say? They know how to make that system work for them. The president of the LG Electric Company is there. He is not American. He is not from here, okay? But he was in that room because his company's future was in that room. Does everybody know what I'm trying to say? And so he know he had to represent, he know he had to be there. He know he had to make that appearance so that he could show his commitment, his company's commitment to this road that he wants this community to support him on. Is everybody kind of hearing what I'm saying? We have
to be at the table to play the chess game.
Yeah, you got to be willing to come to, not only come to the table, but come with a good game, right? You can't just show up at the table and you playing, checkers and everybody else is playing chess. And so that's where our strengths, our gifts can help us, because we do need to look and be very professional in what we do, because people will spend time breaking us down. We do need to have unity in the community, because we become our own worst enemies when we won't work together, when we won't support one another. I need to recognize that I may not get what I want right now, but if I help you get what you're trying to do, that along the way, getting where I want to go becomes more possible. Am I making any sense? Or does this just sound confusing?
That makes sense to me. I think a lot of it is kind of like how we were talking about earlier, is there's different parts of the process. There's research, and there's actual field work. And yeah, I believe it's multifaceted. And like you said, we have a team with different strengths, and we could complement each other. And a lot of it does have to do with philosophy, having to do with talking about our strengths, our weaknesses, our strategies, and then applying those.
It's all about leading by example and giving it out there.
Yeah, well, I think thank you very much, Jacob. That's it exactly, though. And we each have to become good at what we do. We each have to help each other become better at what we do. I don't want to just be the one who arrives there. The idea is that we all get there and that we're all able to kind of experience that. And I think one of the ways that we are trying to make that happen is with what we call asset mapping. So our framework for working in the community, asset mapping, says we want to map the resources that are in the community. We want to identify them. We want to know who can do what. We want to know, first of all, what places are available in our community for us to, have events or do things. I was talking yesterday with the gentleman from the Blue Zones project. They would like us to partner with them in how can we help make this a blue zone, Palm Springs a blue zone. And one of the challenges is, how do we use our spaces and places? Do we have parks and things? And I remember probably 18 years ago, I was doing some consulting work with people from Desert Age Project. And what we were working on in particular was the Tour de Palm Springs and how we wanted to transform the city of Palm Springs, how they wanted to transform the city of Palm Springs into one of the most bicycle and pedestrian friendly cities in the world. Because that would attract things like the Tour de Palm Springs and other bike races. And people, if they feel good walking the streets. And so if you look at Palm Springs, the way it's laid out is very different than a lot of cities. There's lots of space for bicycles on the street. I mean, if you look at those bike lanes, they're enormous, compared to if you come to San Bernardino, there are no bike lanes. You ride a bike in San Bernardino in the street at your own peril. You will get killed out here. I mean, there are some bike lanes, but they're nothing like the ones in Palm Springs. But that was an intentional, project that people took to the city, and that they raised resources. Does everybody know what I'm trying to say? That's what we have to do so that the projects that you want get funded. And that's what the guy from the Blue Zones was saying. Look, we'd love to come in and work with you. And we have this, this whole framework of ways we can do things. But if the community is not willing to help develop the resources to implement it, then we can't be responsible to come in and do it for you. And this is the thing that I have learned, right? When you do it for yourself, you take good care of it. That's the best way I could put it. And if you look at Palm Springs, the bicycle thing is very real, and they're very serious about it. You don't mess with bikes in Palm Springs. And that was an intentional decision by a group of people within the community of Palm Springs that made it a better place for everybody in Palm Springs. Does that kind of make some sense? And we have to look at the communities that we have and identify what are the things that we can do in our community, and then how do we get it done? And I remember the planning that went into making that project kind of work. And I think that's what I'm suggesting. Karina.
I like the idea of mentioning how not only when you're part of it and you're part of building it, you take greater pride in it and
Yes.
looking at the bigger picture of pedestrian safety, but being the leader in that, because as much as I can speak on Palm Desert, having that, Marsha Brady, Jan Brady relationship with the city of Palm Springs.
Yes.
We can't help that we're intertwined. And I say we as the city, not as myself. I looked at Palm Springs as being a leader, where some people here just don't want to be anything like Palm Springs, without realizing we're so interconnected.
Yes.
Palm Springs led the way, but now we have the CV link.
Yes.
It's a collective issue. The idea and the project can start in one place, but then we can build it out to the greater good, to the greater safety. And Palm Desert went and we swept, I think, 5 awards at some regional planning location for how that we redesigned our own bike safety and the different components in Palm Desert. As much as we don't want to say that Palm Springs started it and we built upon it. But you're right, it has to come from within. When you involve the stakeholders, there is greater pride, there is greater success, because you're not dictating to the people, this is what you need.
Yes.
When it's organic and it comes from the ground up and the leaders listen, because leadership requires listening instead of just dictation. So I think that's a great example, and it can be expanded upon how we can gain even greater traction from there.
And I think that is kind of the key to the work that we want to do. That we help identify what is it that we want, whether it is, one of the discussions that I hear often is this story about food deserts, right? I think on Tuesday, we talked a little bit about the fact that there's a whole lot of fast food places, but not any supermarkets. And one of the ideas that we discussed is, well, one of the things that happened in Philadelphia, I'm from Philadelphia, is that a guy named Reverend Leon Sullivan, back in the 60s when civil rights was going on, recognized that Black folks, or at that time we were called Negroes, were not prepared. Even if civil rights got passed, we did not have the skills and the systems in place to take advantage of those opportunities that might be coming our way. And so he went to his church. He actually has a church in North Philadelphia. And he said to them, let's each invest in our community. So they started an organization called OIC, and they invested, the people in the church actually invested money, and they purchased a piece of property that is known as Progress Plaza. That was the name they gave their property. And they started building little stores and shops. So it became like a little strip mall. And then they actually bought and opened up and operated their own grocery store. And what it did was 2 things. The grocery store really did 2 things. One, it actually allowed them to now have access to fruits and vegetables and all of those things that go with that. And number 2, they used the grocery store as a place to train people how to work in that industry. So people learned how to order things, how to stock things, how to actually sell, how to market. All of those things came out of that investment. Today, by the way, 50 years later, there are still people from that original group who are getting dividends because Progress Plaza now I think has a movie theater on it, and they're getting paid. Does everybody know what I'm trying to say? On their investment in their community. It's still there. And that's the kind of thing that this community has to recognize. What do we want that? And I'm not suggesting that we open a grocery store, though I don't think that would be a bad idea. But I think whatever we do, we should decide what it is. We should decide to use it not just as one solution, but as multiple solutions, as a way to draw us together. And I'm still talking about Progress Plaza 50 years later. So there is definitely a sense of pride and ownership and empowerment that came from, and by the way, I don't know how many of you know the story of Reverend Leon Sullivan. I don't want to, belabor it too much, but just for those of you who don't know, he was very instrumental in the end of apartheid in South Africa, because he created what he called the Sullivan Principles, which said two things. Number one, it was an embargo of South Africa. So if you know, for many years, no South African athletes could participate in Olympic Games. The South Africans could not be in the Olympics. That was Reverend Leon Sullivan who came up with that. And the second thing was that they would divest or have people move their money out of any business that supported apartheid in South Africa. So many big universities had a lot of money invested in stocks that were tied to South Africa. All of that was getting ready to be withdrawn. And that has a whole lot to do with the fact that they started talking to Nelson Mandela and how South Africa changed. So all from a church in North Philadelphia. Does everybody follow what I'm trying to say? We had a country all the way across the world in South Africa that really changed. And at the core of that change was really these Sullivan principles that, Reverend Leon Sullivan just started this. And by building up Progress Plaza, he had a voice in Washington. One of the most powerful people in Washington at one point was a congressman from his community called Bill Gray. And they said Bill Gray was the second most powerful or third most powerful person in Washington, D.C. at one point. But it was through this community collective action. That's what I want to see Desert, Highland Gateway, and Sunrise, and the Move Park. I want to see that kind of power come out of this community. And it didn't take a whole lot. Everybody didn't have to get on board at first, but I did not go to that church, but I got on board. Does everybody know what I'm trying to say? I've used OIC services. I worked with OIC schools. And not that everybody was perfect, not that it was a perfect system, but here's what it did. It allowed them to flex their muscles. And that's what this community is going to have to do. They're going to have to want to flex their muscles and in a positive way, make a change that not only affects them, but I like what you said just a few seconds ago, Karina, it impacts communities around us, and as that happens, people begin to take you serious. People begin to understand what you want to do. So Mr. Frazier, you asked why I'm here. I think that's why I'm here. I think it's because I've witnessed that. I understand the work it takes to do it. I recognize it takes a lot of patience. Did everybody hear me say that? It takes a lot of patience because getting people on the same page is very hard. It takes a lot of grace because, grace, they say, is unmerited favor. It's like helping people even though they don't deserve it. And what we sometimes do is we judge who we want to help and who we don't want to help. And we can't do that. We have to welcome in all in the community and try to involve all in the solution so that eventually it's a solution that could stick. Because if you don't involve everybody in the community, if you don't try to engage and incorporate them, then that solidarity that you mentioned earlier, it's not there. Solidarity doesn't say I'm going by myself. It says we are going to go together. And so we need to take the good and the bad with us, and we need to improve the bad as we move along. But it doesn't go away. You know, when I think about the Lord of the Rings, you know, there was a breakdown. You know, the one prince that was with the fellowship kind of turned and he tried to steal the ring from Frodo. I hope you guys like that. If you didn't, sorry. But, you know, but then he redeemed himself, right? He sacrificed himself to let Frodo get away from the bad guys. There's going to be some of that in this story. And I think that's the part that I don't like about this story, because I know that it's not tidy and comfortable. It's very uncomfortable and it's very messy. And I think people don't like messy. I think people that they're not willing to put in the time, the energy, and the effort to be able to, you know, kind of recognize that's just dirty hands. We can wash those off. And that's not the easiest thing to do. But if we're going to go, we have to decide to go together. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that as you talked about it being kind of ugly sometimes. And I think it's important to acknowledge that's where the human factor comes in, and that we have to check our own bias. Yes. If we feel uncomfortable, ask ourselves why. Is it something that we have to overcome? Is it what about the circumstance? Is it that we need the right partner with us to help overcome that? Is it where we feel we're not the best equipped, or is it a personal bias? So leaning into understanding why we're uncomfortable in order to strengthen our ability to help either the person we're trying to communicate with, or helping ourselves overcome that bias to become stronger throughout the process overall.
And sometimes it's just biting down on the wood chip that's in your mouth and kind of grin and bear it. You know, sometimes it's just going to be, you know what, this is not going to be the way I want it to be, but this is going to be the way it is. But we're going in the right direction and we're going to go together. Does that kind of make some sense to anybody? Miss Candace, I saw that you switched to your phone. Is that a little bit better for you? Unmute yourself. Whoops, not quite yet. You got it? There you go. Go ahead, Jacob. You wanted to say something?
Sorry, what were we talking about right now?
Just this idea that
I got it. There it goes.
Okay, Hi. There you go. All right, go ahead, Candace. Jacob, I'll come back to you.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead. So what do you think about all of this, Miss Candace?
Well, I just think it's, I feel so fortunate and privileged to be able to be a part of the organization. I mean, a team is what you need in order to take a territory. We have, it takes more than just one Lone Ranger or just a couple people. You got to get a team to then get the team out to the community, to get them all involved and become connectors so that everyone can get on board. Because we don't want to really leave nobody behind. Now, if they don't want to go, they don't want to come go, then we can't make them. But we really have to become community minded. It's very important.
I think that's really the key to our success. So our asset mapping says, let's look at people. This is Palm Springs where people retire. I always tell people, I think the treasure of Palm Springs is, you got half of the retired people in the known universe live in Palm Springs, at least half of the year. We ought to be activating those people. They ought to be working as volunteers and mentors and, people who can help us write grants and build capital. I think we have to build our own resource base using what's in the community already, and then building on that so that we actually have the resources and capital that we need to be able to say, this is what we want to do. And, you know, I have a gentleman that I just talked to. He's going to work with us going forward. And he was involved in Los Angeles back in the 1970s. And he said, you know, we figured this out. You know, Los Angeles figured this out back in the 70s. And so they had all kinds of programs. One of the programs in Los Angeles was OIC, by the way. And they were running the community and people were getting jobs and it was getting better. And then they hired the United States, hired a guy named Ronald Reagan as the president. Now you gotta forgive me because I like Ronald Reagan on Death Valley days. But I didn't like Ronald Reagan as the president of the United States. It just seemed to me his qualification was to be a great actor, not to be a great leader. And one of the things that he did was he shut down all of the government funding that was going to those programs, and those programs dried up. In the old way that I like to say it, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. See, I think if you don't want people to be able to take away your funding, then make sure it's your funding and they don't have nothing to say about it. Then they can't shut you down. Then they can't stop your program. So it's really going to be important for us as we go forward to look at how we build up the resources that the community has and the capital that the community needs. We know capital works. You know, one of the things that I have always said is kind of crazy about being in the nonprofit world is that unfortunately, or maybe not so unfortunately, but it's really usually a few people control most of the funding. And most of those people don't live in the communities that actually need the funding. So the self-interest of the community gets kind of pushed to the side, and we really work on the interests of the people who have the money. So we have to change that model. We have to work to begin to see a better way, a different way. And I think identifying what we already have, building what we need, being able to put the right questions to the community. What does the community want? A lot of times we ask that question, and what a lot of people say is what they don't want. I don't want to have trouble in the streets. I say, okay, but what do you want? What is it? And much like today, we had companies that stood up, Palm Springs Airport, LG Electric, who were saying what they wanted. We want an automated America. We want an international airport. We want the best hotels in the world. So I got to ask this community, what does it want? And then help it work with one another so that they can get what they want. I think that's going to be the road that we start down together. I'm hoping that, you know, as long as I can be with you, as long as, you know, you want me to be with you, that I can be a facilitator, that we can help grow one another in such a way that we make a difference, you know, in getting us closer to those goals. But there's a famous scripture that I like in Hebrews, and it talks about all of the heroes of faith, the people like Abraham. And it says, even though they never saw it, they never lost hope that it was going to come about. I'm going to say, I don't know if I'll be here to see it, but I know I'm not going to lose hope that it's going to come about. But I think it's going to come about because of the work that each and every one of you puts into the group. I think it's going to come about because we bring more like-minded people to the table, and we get those people who are not like-minded to learn how to work together so that we cross the finish line together, so that we can walk the extra mile together, so that we can really transform the community and not just, you know, kind of soothe the community, because that's really what we have to do. We have to go from this idea of a temporary fix to one of, to get to this permanent change, it's going to take this work. Just like, if you want to be healthier, you don't just, go out and do 10 push-ups and say, okay, I'm healthier. It's how you eat. It's getting enough sleep. It's, drinking enough water. It's staying away from things that are not good for you and embracing things that are, and having the discipline to work through your differences so that you can reach that goal of whatever healthy means for you. Well, I think that's what we have to do in our communities. And I think that I touched on most of what I said on Tuesday, but if there's anyone here or anyone who has something they'd like to add, I'd really like to hear what you have to say. Anyone? Go ahead, Karina.
I think that this, when I can make it to these meetings, it's always nurturing to the soul. During the pandemic, a lot of it has felt like isolating work. We have all been working towards the same community goal. A lot of us are givers, not always so good at taking care of ourselves. And when we feel, at least speaking for myself, when I feel that there are others working in the same direction, it makes it a little bit more rewarding that we are all adding our own little drops of water to provide nourishment for others while we can drink from that ourselves. So I appreciate the meetings being a little informal because it doesn't take there isn't the pressure. We're here to listen and take in the message that we're doing good work little by little. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to hear other perspectives. And I love hearing the perspective of philosophy and the data analysis and how that has to be as much a part of it. We're going to feel good with the work that we're doing, but we need to quantify and find neutral analytics for how we're going to justify the metrics, because anyone can write their grant and skew the numbers however they want, but we are going to be doing meaningful, impactful, generational work. And I want to thank you for your leadership and for the contributions of everyone here, and lament that I've been off screen as this is my first day of really feeling better after COVID caught me, and I was able to go and get some groceries and some other stuff. So I appreciate the flexibility of Zoom as well, while we can still maximize doing these, again, this good work in our own flexible way so that we can maintain that work-life balance, so that we can be at our best to give to the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else before we kind of wrap this up? Mr. Frazier, anything?
Everything sounds great.
You ready? You ready to work? I met a guy who worked at that school you were telling me about, Mr. Frazier. The gentleman I was talking about, he used to work there, the building we were discussing.
Out in Whitewater?
Yes, he used to work there.
Yes.
I don't know if you might know him, so we'll get together because he's going to come.
I'm sure I do.
That's why I say I think that, even though you didn't know at the time, you were kind of hipping me. And when he brought it up, I said, I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's the strength of us, that is just, if we activate it, it makes such a difference that you and I had a conversation, and then I'm talking with him, and A and B are connecting, you know what I'm saying? So this tells me we are going in the right direction. And yes, I want to make sure we echo before we get away. We are glad to hear that you are on the mending side of COVID now, because let me tell you, that's one of those things that's not gone. I think too often we forget that, and that makes a big difference. But I think using these tools and having these opportunities is good. Ms. Candace, did you want to say anything? I know you're driving, so it's up to you. I want you to be unsafe.
No, I just want to say that I agree with Karina. I look forward to these Thursday meetings. I wish I could attend the Tuesday meetings and the Thursday morning meetings, but you know, it feeds my soul. It makes me think, gives me ideas, and I just again feel privileged to be a part of a group like this. And thank you for your leadership.
Thank
Because
you.
I really appreciate the things that you pour out and that you share with us and that you teach us. I learn something new from you every time we have a meeting.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm just happy to be able to be here still. And Jacob, anything you want to say before we kind of start to wrap up our night?
Mostly like I enjoy these meetings too. And that I feel like I always learn something like in these meetings, and they're very interesting. And also like to share like something I think that's interesting, like I mentioned about like health science. Like there's this idea probably a lot of people heard about, is like Maslow's hierarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that's a interesting perspective to use to think about, like in general, like I think was good for health.
I think that is a great framework for having that health conversation, Jacob.
Yeah.
What I would love to do is ask you to work with Billy and Kathy, because I think that we want to build around that framework of, you know, what are those needs, those primary needs, and is the community, all those being met? And then moving up to the psychological and social needs, so that we can make sure that people feel, you know, that foundation that they build, right, is going to hold up. Because without that, if you start at the top, it doesn't work. You got to start and build up. And so I think having you as part of our team, bringing that perspective and looking at how do we actually implement that in this framework of asset building and finding out what people can do, those resources that are available, will be very important. So thank you. And what I would like to do, are you free tomorrow morning, maybe around 10:30 or so?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to give you a call and try to work on your assignment so that we can. Jacob is an intern with us from CLD, and I'm really trying to get him kind of activated. So I'll give you a call tomorrow morning, because I want to take what you talked about today and look at how we can put it into action. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Thank you for being a part of this, because I think the more young people like you we can have, that's going to bring more energy to who we are and what we're trying to do. And lastly, but certainly not least, my staff. Thank you, both Vladi and Angelica, for your support. Before we go, was there anything either one of you wanted to say?
Not much. There's not much work to do because you guys are a great group. And I also wanted to say there's one good thing about the CRS team meeting, and that is it's an opportunity to make friends, which is pretty, I feel like that's a pretty good thing by itself too, like meet people and meet friends.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone again for your time tonight. Again, I know time is precious. I look forward to seeing you all next week. I want to, again, encourage you, if you are free, on Tuesdays, we tend to be in the office a lot after the CRT meeting. So even if you can't come during the meeting, let us know, and we'll try to make sure that we're at the office and we can meet with you. And for each and every one of you, please let us know, what is it that you think we can do? What are some of the things that you think are good ideas? Who are some of the other people that we should be bringing to the table? Feel free to start to bring your friends and, you know, bring them as volunteers, bring them as interns, so that we can get more people involved, because the more people we have, the more work we can get done. so that we can really reach the goals that we're trying to reach. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to just thank you all for not only allowing me to take your time like this, but for making me feel like I'm making a contribution. So take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Good night.